There's a big growth opportunity happening on Instagram right now with Reels. Love them or hate them, Instagram is pushing Reels really hard on the platform. So regardless of your following right now, you have the opportunity to be seen and found by your dream clients through this fun video content. So to talk all things Reels, I'm chatting today with Stephanie Kase, and you should know I absolutely love Stephanie. She's a photographer and educator. She's a YouTuber and just a really amazing person. We met when she purchased a website template for my shop, which we'll actually be talking about together on another episode airing after this one. But she just is so incredibly smart and savvy as a businesswoman, and she's the perfect person to chat about with Reels. And let me tell you why. Over the past 2 months, Stephanie has grown by over 2,500 followers on Instagram, and she attributes that growth to her Reels. And she posts a lot of Reels. They're really awesome. I enjoy watching them. And not only that, but it's really cool because she's had Reels get thousands upon thousands of views. She's had a bunch go viral, and even one recent one with over 200,000 views. And before Reels, she was getting maybe 100 to 150 new followers in a month. So the average is like about 25, 30 a week. But now she's seeing new followers rolling in constantly. And a cool thing too, and we'll talk about this, but the followers she's getting are relevant to what she sells. So she's not just getting followers for the sake of followers, but instead people are finding her who are ideal clients and customers. Now, at the time with me and Stephanie recorded this, I had only posted 2 Reels. And so I'm coming at this from the perspective of like, I have a lot of questions and I want to learn. So I ask her some really good questions. We talk about things like content ideas for your Reels, what to do if dancing and pointing is not your style. So other Reel ideas. What to do if you don't have music as an Instagram feature and how to get music still in your Reels. That's really fun. How to create covers for your Reels, and if you should have covers, what that even means. We talk about how long it takes to make a Reel, even though, they're 15 seconds or more. They're not long, but it still can take a lot of time to make them. And we also talk about batching Reels. We talk about analytics, tips for creating viral Reels, and so much more. So I learned a lot from Stephanie in this episode, and she really fired me up about creating Reels because I hadn't really paid much attention to them before kind of seeing her success with them. And it's funny, the day we recorded this afterwards, I recorded about 7 Reels that afternoon, and I just had a blast. It was so much fun, laughing, creating goofy content, fun content, educational, all the things. So by the time this airs, you guys will have seen me post a lot of those. If you want even more content ideas to kind of see what I went with after this conversation with Stephanie. Another fast thing to note, if you are listening to this episode live, then you need to go over to my Instagram. We will be having a giveaway, Stephanie and I, of some Lightroom presets to help you make your Instagram feed really beautiful, editing your photos just directly from your phone with the free Lightroom app. So Stephanie is giving away some presets, and I'm also giving away one of my link in bio website templates for Show It. So just go to my profile and you'll be able to get all the details there, and it's going to be super easy to enter. So we're really excited about that. And without further ado, let's play this conversation with Stephanie Kase all about Reels. Hey guys, it's Elizabeth McCravey, and you're listening to the Breakthrough Brand Podcast. Each week, I'll bring you workshop-style trainings that teach you how to stand out online, design success from the inside out, and create a breakthrough business. It's time to turn viewers into raving fans and design the business and life of your dreams. I'm so excited you're here. All right, guys, I'm sitting here on Zoom with the lovely Stephanie Kase, and I have to tell you, you literally kind of get to see this a little bit in my notes because I made a point of writing that I wanted to say this to you, but I love you and your business so much and really admire you and all the amazing things you're doing. I look forward to your Instagram and your YouTube videos and your website, customization with the Jenna template is one of my favorites. So anyway, I'm just so excited to have you teach everyone on this episode. So welcome.
Oh, thank you. I am equally as excited to be here. I love your business. I love your podcast. I think I remember when I first found you, I binged your podcast in a couple of days. This girl is the best. So I'm super excited to be here.
Yay. Oh, I'm so excited. And this is like, we were just talking about this, but you were describing this as like such fresh content. And that's so true because this is all so relevant, what we're talking about of Reels today. But before we get into like all the Reels stuff, can you tell everyone a bit about who you are and what you do and who you work with and all that fun stuff?
Yes. So if you're not familiar with me, I am Stephanie Kase. I am a photographer and an educator, and I'm from Columbus, Ohio, so up in the Midwest. I've been here for I think I've been here for almost 6 years, and that's around the time I also started my business. So I started my photography business right after I moved here to Columbus. And the first 4 or 5 years of my business, I was primarily a wedding photographer. So I only focused on photographing couples, photographing weddings. And also in the past year, education has become a huge part of my business in helping students online through mentoring courses, all of that stuff. I also have a weekly YouTube channel that's super fun. So and more recently sharing through Instagram Reels, which is what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, and your YouTube channel is so awesome. Like the production level alone of it makes me like excited watching it. I'm like, how are you doing this so well? It's amazing. And also, I do want to ask you this because you did a post about this the other day and you just made me think of it. But you started your business really young. How young were you, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah. So once I shot my first wedding, I like assisted. I think I was 16 or 17. And then I started my business a year later when I was 18. So, I was pretty young, and I grew my business through college, and then I graduated last year. So in May of 2019 is when I graduated from college and just went full time with my business right after that.
Okay, I didn't realize you were that recent of a college grad. That's so cool. Because see, for me, I always felt young when I started my business, but I was not that young as you were. I was more like 21, 22. So yeah, that's incredible. I love that. I wish more people would be able to find that that's what they want to do and start it sooner without doing like the corporate thing first when that's what they're meant to do. So
yeah,
that's
definitely.
Awesome.
I feel like I figured out pretty early on that being in a 9-to-5 was not going to work for me. And then I just loved being my own boss. And so I've just been going full speed ahead ever since I graduated. It's been so awesome.
We might have to have you back on to talk about that.
Oh,
Starting a business so young. That's just amazing.
That would be so fun. I would love that.
Yeah. Okay, so let's dive into Reels. So we kind of have like little categories around all the different things we want to talk about with Reels. So that I'm hoping that this episode can be like pretty holistic on how to do Reels, why you should do them, content creation ideas, all of that. But we're also not going to like show you step by step how to do it by any means. Because I actually think, at least from my experience, like starting to play with it more, just getting in there and playing with it is like really helpful on its own. So first, can you just tell people like really basically what Reels are and how it's different from Instagram stories and IGTV and all that, if they're like, wait, I actually don't even really know what this new thing is yet.
Yeah. Okay. So I feel like the first thing you have to know is be familiar with like TikTok and what that is, right? And so TikTok is really a platform that is solely short form videos. So when we say short form videos, like they started out as I think 15-second videos and slowly went up to now you can add up to 1 minute of video content. So it's not super long video content like YouTube or anything like that. And so Instagram Reels, especially when it got to the point where TikTok was looking like it might be banned in the US, they kind of swooped in and said, we're going to take this same idea and basically apply it to Instagram. And so essentially, how I like to describe Reels is just it's short form video content. If you want to like put a fancy name to it, it's not anything that's long form. It's something that people just want like quick things. They want to be inspired. They want to see funny videos. They want to see get quick tips and tricks. So I would say that's really where Reels is, as opposed to, when you think about a YouTube video or IGTV, that's a little bit more long form. It's a little bit more, maybe 5, 10, 15 minutes long where someone's sitting down and watching it, versus Reels is more quick and fast. And I know Reels at this point, it started out at 15 seconds. Recently, they also added, you can do up to 30 seconds. I don't know if that's on everyone's account, but on mine, I recently recently it went up to 30. So I imagine they're going to go up to probably a minute like they will, more like they did on TikTok. But does that help explain?
Yeah. I didn't know TikTok lets you do that long.
Yeah. Yep. You can do up to a minute. Yep.
And that's something too, we should put a disclaimer out there. Stephanie is the one who knows all the things about Reels. I actually have I've done one. Well, I've done 2 reels. So this morning, I was going to tell you this. So this morning, I was thinking about this interview and got like inspired about reels and ended up being able to like jot in my phone about 10 ideas that I'm like, oh, I should make a reel about that. So I actually made 2 this morning and posted one of them, and it was really fun. And
Yes.
I like it. I've gotten comments and, a lot of views on it already. And that's just a few hours ago. But I feel like I finally like saw like having fun with it, kind of been prepping for this interview. So, but you've done so many reels and you've seen a ton of growth from it. And I've been able to like watch your growth too. I'm like looking, your like followers are going up so much every time, like every week, every day with new stuff. So can you kind of share some of those wins you've had with reels? Interrupting this episode with a suggestion for the small business owners listening. Ever wonder what you should do for healthcare when you and your spouse are both self-employed, so there's no work-provided health insurance to participate in? Well, when my husband Adam joined me in the entrepreneurial job space over 4 years ago, we joined Christian Healthcare Ministries instead of getting traditional health insurance. And it was the best decision for us, especially in these years of growing and raising a family while also running multiple businesses. CHM is a health cost-sharing ministry and is a faith-based alternative to health insurance. We did tons of research before choosing CHM, and if you know me and Adam, you know we are all about doing the math when making big or small financial decisions. And even though it's not insurance, CHM shares 100% of eligible medical bills, which is more than the typical 70 or 80% of medical bills paid for by insurance companies. All sharing is determined by the CHM guidelines, which you can check out before and after joining. And for the mamas and mamas to be listening, you truly cannot find a better healthcare option for maternity care. I had a vaginal delivery and a C-section and birth center care and hospital care between my 2 pregnancies and births, and it was all 100% shared for. And outside of birth, we've had our share of emergency room visits and procedures as a family, and those costs were all shared by members at Christian Healthcare Ministries, leaving us only paying our monthly contribution. CHM is less expensive month to month than insurance, and because there's no network, you can choose your care with whichever providers best fit your family. I seriously just cannot recommend Christian Healthcare Ministries enough. You've got to check them out. Go to elizabethmccravey.com/CHM for more information. Also putting that link in the show notes, elizabethmccravey.com/CHM. Now back to the episode.
Yes, I would love to. It's an amazing way to grow on Instagram right now, because Instagram is really prioritizing reels, pushing reels out to not just your current audience, but also to new people. So people who don't even follow you can see your reels. So for me, what this has looked like in the past, I guess almost 2 months since reels came out, it hasn't even been that long. I've grown by over 2,500 followers on Instagram. And while I hate almost saying that, because I don't want you to look at the vanity metrics and think like, oh, like it's all about followers and likes and all of that. But I mean, 100% of that, I can attribute that to reels. And those are people who are turning into real engaged followers on my account. And I would say especially my ideal client when it comes to the education side of my business, I'm noticing like there are a lot of other photographers that are like wanting to learn from me that are following. And also another thing that I've seen that's been really cool is I had one video really take off. And a lot of these videos too, to begin with, I was repurposing a lot of content that I had posted on TikTok. And I had done some with TikTok. I had seen some success, but not enough to pour a ton of time and energy into it. But I was almost just taking what I'd done on TikTok and uploading it to Reels. And for me, I don't know if it's just my audience, if it's, more my people are on Instagram versus TikTok, but on Instagram, I've seen more views and more growth with the same videos that I try uploading to TikTok versus Instagram Reels. So my one video has over 200,000 views right now, like thousands of likes, so many comments, and it's crazy. Like the kind of reach, like that has never happened at least for me on Instagram before, with regular posts. Like before Reels started, I was gaining maybe like 100, 150 followers a month from like random places, mostly from, if I did a podcast interview or if I, did some other collaboration or found me randomly like that. And it's just crazy. It's crazy. Like there's so many eyes that's getting on my content because I'm uploading Reels.
Yeah, I have a few questions with that, and then I want to get into all this stuff. So first, do you still post on TikTok, or are you like all in on Reels, or are you like posting stuff to both places?
Yeah, so I'll be honest, I feel like I've neglected my TikTok a little bit and I haven't been focusing on it too much, but what I've started doing is anything, because for the first, I would say good month, I was just taking a lot of what I already made on TikTok, what I had seen work well on my TikTok account, and then uploading it over to Reels. And then more recently in the past month is when I've actually started creating like one specifically for Reels, and then also kind of taking those and uploading them to TikTok. And so I'm able to repurpose my content back and forth in that way, but I'm definitely seeing a lot more growth just for me over on Reels. And to me, an Instagram follower is a little bit more valuable than someone on TikTok. That's just from my experience. I know there's other photographers, other educators who are seeing a lot of growth on TikTok and are growing their brand that way. But for me and what I've seen, Reels has been even more impactful for me. So I've been putting most of my time and energy into Reels.
Yeah, I love that. And two, I want to say, like, I want people to go watch your reels once as they're listening, take a break and go look at her reels. But your reel content, it's really cool because it is a solid mix of like, to me, some that's humorous, like just funny. And then you also do some that are like, oh my gosh, if I'm also a photographer who wants to have a successful business, this is so insightful to like watch what you're doing, like cool behind the scenes stuff. And then stuff where it's like, if I'm a bride or someone who wants personal branding, it's like, oh, this is cool to see like how this girl is doing everything. So you've done like a really great, I guess what I'm trying to say is like, you said you've had 2,500 new followers ish. Mm-hmm. Like, I think they probably really are real people who make sense for you because the content is so aligned. And so I think that's a good like thing to remember with what to post. So with that though, let's talk about content ideas and like, how do I start here? I wanted to hear your ideas of like to give people of like what could we post, but first, how are you coming up with your own ideas? Like, what's your like strategy there?
Yeah, so I will say it does help a lot if you just go on Reels or just go on TikTok. Either one of those works, and just scroll. Because when you scroll and you see like what's working, what are people posting, what are the trends, what are some sounds you could use, that really helps me to spark ideas of ones that I could create. I even last night, like I was scrolling TikTok and like every other video, I'm like, oh my gosh, wait, that's a good idea. And I would write it down in my notes. So that's another tip right there is just keep a running list of all the things you've seen, save those videos so that you have access to them like on your Instagram or TikTok, and you can go back and refer to them, whether to grab the sound, whether just to get the idea. But I do that a lot, just like scrolling, looking at reels, looking at what's working, especially when it comes to TikTok, trends are really big. So whether it's trending sounds, whether it's a trending type of video, that's super big, and just what can do really well. It can get a lot of traction because you kind of put your own spin on it, or put your own spin on it for your industry or for your account or whatever you do. So I've seen things like that do really well. But honestly, just having reels too that give a ton of value. So whether I'm giving tips and tricks or I'm showing behind the scenes, anything like that where I can give them value, especially like you were just saying, it's so on point, like target it for your ideal client. Like, it wouldn't do me any good to do maybe like, for you doing like 5 tips for your website to help your website convert. Versus for me, that wouldn't really make sense because I'm not a website designer. That wouldn't convert. What was I listening to? I can't remember. I was listening to a podcast where someone was talking about they had a viral like candle video on TikTok and they uploaded it to Reels too, but they only saw 80 followers convert from that video because their account isn't about candles, even though it had like over 1 million views or something crazy like that. And so you have to make sure like it is very aligned because, in comparison, I haven't had a video hit 1 million views, but I've been able to gain over 2,500 followers because the people who are seeing my content, it's very in line with what I offer, how I help people, just the education that I offer in general.
Yeah. Well, and for context for people, like you are not someone right now with like hundreds of thousands of followers. Right. So like the 2,500 really is like a significant amount of the following you have. So it's like, that's amazing. Yeah. So, okay. Keeping a list, saving videos we like. Also, like this morning when I was like getting inspired thinking about this episode, I just made a list in my phone of ideas, like topics, kind of like what the overarching idea was. But then I was like kind of storyboarding it a bit of like, here's what the first clip would be. Here's the next one, just like for my own notes. And I ended up coming up with like about 10 different ideas just through kind of like pacing around my house and typing and like, oh, that'd be fun. So I think that's a good way too of like kind of the storyboarding idea. Are you doing that or just writing like the general concept?
Yeah, I've done a little bit of both, especially I
Yeah.
would say I keep more of a list of all the ideas I want to do. And then when I actually sit down and make the video, sometimes I'll write out like, I need to film this scene and then this scene and then have this and
Yeah.
this. But I think that's so awesome. Like, and I think what people don't realize about reels or any other short form videos right now is it's actually really fun. Like it's a different way of
Yeah.
creating content that's actually kind of gets you out of your comfort zone a little bit, and it gets you thinking in different ways. And I find it to be super, super fun. It doesn't feel as like, something that has to be super perfect, like we maybe put pressure on ourselves for things to be perfect on Instagram with posts and captions and stuff. But with reels, it is super fun to almost just have fun with it a little bit and have fun creating it.
Yeah, I wish you had already seen my one I posted this morning, because I literally, like, sitting right where I am, I put a hood on, like and it was like what the topic was for everyone listening was what people think website designers do versus what you actually do. And so I put on like a hood and I put all these coffee mugs around me and was like typing it, and I showed like coding and stuff. But it was like so funny because I was walking around my house with this like hood, all like this black hoodie on, and my husband's like, what are you doing? But it was really fun though. Like I enjoyed myself. So yeah, with that though, like, can you give us, for everyone listening, kind of thinking about service-based businesses, a lot of photographers listening, coaches, other designers, what are some ideas for like that they could jot down as like starting points on their own Reels topics?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think one of the easiest things you can create is literally show up yourself on camera and, either have one tip for this or show people how to do something. So maybe think about what's something like just a little quick win you can give people within a reel. So I even think about, I'm trying to think, like I did one recently that was for photographers, was how to have blurry backgrounds. Because a lot of new photographers just think, wait, I just want a blurry background, but how do I do that? And so I did a reel giving 3 tips on how to have a blurry background. Think about specifically like your ideal client, how you can help them and how you can give really quick tips. And something I'll say here is don't try to jam pack too much into one reel. Don't feel like you have to jam pack like maybe 10, 15 tips of everything you know about one topic. Sometimes even just one quick win. Like I saw this one that was about like a Lightroom hack where you like use this eyedropper and you like click on it and then it makes your white balance look beautiful and like perfect.
Yeah.
And I saw a TikTok like get thousands of views and thousands of likes doing that. It's not like they were giving a full Lightroom tutorial, but almost quick things like that gets people thinking, oh, like, wow, that was really cool. And like want to share it with other people and want to save it. And so you can think about like, what are some tips and tricks you can do? That's really helpful. I know I mentioned this already, but also jumping on trends. So right now on Reels, it's kind of hard to see trends. I mean, you can see what other people are doing, but on TikTok, it is way more common to like, there's trends going on like every single week they come in and out. There's different sounds people use that you can also grab and use for yourself. And so you could even download TikTok and use TikTok as a source of inspiration for different trends. You can jump on and kind of bring it over to Reels, I've seen some of those do really well because it's not like there's a ton of people doing it yet on Reels. And so I'm able to bring that trend that's, overdone on TikTok and bring it over to Reels. And it feels really fresh to those people. So that's something you could look at doing. And again, kind of just scrolling, getting some ideas, saving, seeing how could you put your own spin on it that, other designers or other coaches or other photographers would find funny. Like you were just talking about the one you made. That's something like people would find really funny and relatable and like, oh yeah, like that's kind of true. You can also show people how to do something if you want to give a tutorial. I know for me, when I was trying to apply this concept, I thought about, as a photographer, I know how to pose people. I know how to pose couples. I know how to pose myself. And so I've done some reels have done really well are actually the one with over 200,000 views was giving a tip on how to pose a couple. I've also done ones where I'm like have myself in front of the camera and I'm posing myself and showing people how I do that because it did so well. But I did one where I was posing with my husband and giving 3 poses that people could do with their significant other. Yeah. And so just thinking about like, what are the things you're good at? What are the things that you do in your business that you could share about and also like give valuable information. Again, going back to the idea of just like having lots of value within it.
I love those ideas. And one too that like, and it's really similar to everything you said because it would just apply over to all of these, but like repurposing content and tips that you've used elsewhere. I know I talk about that pretty often on this podcast, but like, maybe you did a post a few weeks ago, I do this all the time where I share like 3 tips for something in an Instagram caption, like maybe see how you could take those 3 tips and turn them into a video somehow, or maybe a podcast episode you do or a YouTube video and taking something from that. Well, I guess that's especially true for like the education side when you think about what to come up with. So I like those tips.
Yes. Yes, and something I'll add in here too, if you're like me and you've done a lot of blogging, maybe you're a YouTuber, you have a lot of YouTube videos, even old Instagram captions, look back at all of those and look at what's done well. What Instagram posts have done really well, what blog posts have done really well, what YouTube videos have done well, and how maybe you can pull 1 or 2 tips from that and share in a reel, or you can kind of break that down into a 15-second reel. Can be a really awesome way to, because you already kind of know what has worked in the past, and so create a reel based around that, and it'll probably do really well too.
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah. And then, okay, this is a funny question, but this is relatable for me as a person. So like, and I'm sure other listeners are the same way, but like a lot of us might think of reels as like, it's just dancing and pointing. And you're like, I don't really know if I want to dance and point. Maybe that's not your thing. Like for me, I love dancing, but like, I don't know, maybe I will and I'll surprise myself, but I don't really see myself doing much of the like dancing and pointing reels. So for people who are like, I don't want to do the latest TikTok dance, I don't want to point and dance, I don't know, what's your response to that? What advice do you have for those people who are like, I don't know if like the showing up on camera that way is my thing?
Yeah. So I would say first thing is don't knock it till you try it, right? I mean, I feel like, you know, if you're in a place where you really want to grow your brand, you really want to grow your business, you really want to have more reach, jumping on some of that and just trying it, seeing if it's for you can be a really cool way just to see, you know, maybe that does resonate well with your audience. Maybe they like seeing that from you. You don't necessarily hear about dancing and pointing and think, oh, like there's no way I'm ever going to create something like that. I encourage you, you know, maybe just try it, just see. It could be something that you end up being like, oh, like I kind of like this. This is kind of fun. And it's a cool way to share quick things with my audience. With that said, like I totally understand, even maybe you're in a place where you're like, I don't want to jump into that yet. I want to create some stuff. I don't want to do this yet. I would say going back to that trends are a really great way to kind of show up on camera, to show up and create reels without having to, you know, point or dance or anything like that. Another really cool idea that I use all the time is just sharing behind the scenes of you working. So whether that's yourself like working from home, whether that's giving an office tour, whether that's for me as a photographer, I'm sharing behind the scenes of myself at sessions and shooting. I do that a lot. And so that can be a cool way to create a reel that can have a lot of value and can be really eye-catching for people to watch without having to show up and actually dance. So I would just say, like, don't see the dancing and pointing and think like, oh, there's no way I'll ever do it. Like, I would say just try it and just see. But if you are at the point where you don't want to try it yet, maybe try some of those other ideas to ease into it a little bit more. That's kind of what I did at the beginning, is I jumped more on like trending sounds, different trends on TikTok and created behind the scenes videos and all of that. And I saw those do really well. Yeah.
And that's great advice. And like, I mean, like your content, a lot of it, like, cause to me, you're a great example of someone where I'm like, oh, I can do a reel like what Stephanie's doing. Like, I like the way you're doing reels, but you're not doing like TikTok dances and stuff. So it's like, I think that's helpful too, to see that like, it doesn't have to be that. Some of it can be like the one I did this morning. I actually did point, but I wasn't like, woohoo, dancing and pointing. I was just like, it made sense to point to the words. But yeah, it just doesn't, I guess that's like, because for me, at one point when I was first thinking about reels, I was like, I don't really know if I want to make these. And that was kind of how I saw it, was like, I don't really want to do that. And so I think for people listening, what you just said is helpful, and that like, it doesn't have to be that. So
yes. If you want inspiration, just go scroll my reels.
Yeah.
Because I don't have, I can think of like maybe 2 different reels, or maybe there's a handful, but I've uploaded a lot of reels, and there's like only a handful where I'm doing any sort of, I'm not a good dancer. So like I kind of avoid dances. I've done some where I like point or do something fun like that, or have fun transitions. But yeah, most of my reels have nothing to do with pointing and dancing. So you can totally jump in on it, and it doesn't have to look like that.
Yes, I love it. So let's talk about creating the reels and like the whole creation process. So like I said before, we're not going to walk you through like, here's where to touch in your phone and stuff. But one thing I want to say real quick about that was interesting for me, again, as someone who feels very new to reels, like I guess here's what I want to say. sometimes it could think like it as a new feature that's like Instagram Live, where like when you open that part of the app and you click start, like all of a sudden, oh my gosh, it's going to be like posted and I'm going to be live. And I'm like, wait, what? It's not like that. So you can actually completely play with it like as much as you want and never post it, because there's a lot of steps before the posting. So I would encourage people to just open it up and just try like filming, try adding text and all of that to kind of figure it out. But yeah. So questions for you though. I have a lot about the creation. I guess let's ask this question first. How long does it take you to create a reel? So I know like there's different complication levels. So maybe looking at the simplest one you've made and then the most complicated one you've made.
Yeah. I mean, so as far as how long it takes, it could be anywhere from like literally 2 minutes to an hour. I think the hour is probably long. I also have a TikTok for my dog that I am very obsessed with. And so I've had TikToks on there that I have spent way too much time creating. For my own business, I would say like, maybe like 5 minutes as far, especially the ones where it is like, I'm just doing a quick, like pointing, smiling, whatever, giving a really quick, fast tip. Or, if you are jumping on a trend or like a sound, those can be like 5-second audio and you just have to like lip sync to the sound or something. And then you add your text and then that's it. So there's some that are really simple like that, or even the behind the scenes videos like I talked about that I do. Those are honestly really simple because I have someone else film that for me when I'm at a photo shoot. And then after I just have to take a little snippet, add some text, add audio, and then that's it. So it only takes me maybe 5-10 minutes to actually sit down and like make it. As far as complicated, I will say there was one that I created that was really fun. I actually had my sister-in-law help me with it. We were on vacation in Florida, like literally 2 weeks before COVID happened. But we were on vacation and it was so much fun because we were able to do all these different shots. And it was like, basically like the premise of it was like the best part of being a photographer is like traveling and working from anywhere and whatever. So it was like me walking along the beach and like sitting on the rocks and like stuff like that. And so that took probably like 30 minutes to like for us to walk around and get those different shots and like do different things. So there's some that can be more complicated, but there's some that can be really simple and don't take me long at all to make. So it really just depends on what it is and like how long it takes.
Okay. Yeah, that's helpful. And then I think this is so interesting. So you've said that you use Final Cut Pro to like do the like splicing, which I use Final Cut all the time. So I'm with you. I love it. But tell us about that. Like, what does that look like for you?
Yes. Okay. So when it comes to actually editing my videos, I use Final Cut Pro solely because I use it for YouTube editing. So I edit all my YouTube videos at this point, and I just find it to be the fastest, easiest way because I'm so proficient in it. Like there's apps, I think there's one called Video Shop, there's one called Splice, I think InShot is another one. Those are all apps you can use to edit within your phone. And those, honestly, they don't take that much longer than what I'm doing. But to me, I'm just so quick with Final Cut Pro that I just bring it on into there, edit it real quick, and then I can export it and save it to my phone. And so what I do is I do the main cuts in Final Cut Pro. So literally when all I'm doing is just, like cutting the different parts of the clips and putting them together. And then I upload that into Reels. And then that's when I add music, when I add text. I do the text all within Reels because I want it to be as native to the platform as possible and not adding text outside of the platform. So I'm making sure that I'm doing all of that within the actual Reels like creation. But I will say if you are doing something that's like lip syncing or like you're doing a trend that has to go with the music or something like that, that is where I will actually make it within Reels or within TikTok, because that makes it way easier than having to like film it outside the app and then like figure out like how to make it, sync. It makes your life way more difficult. So if you are jumping on a trend or something like that, where there's a specific sound where you have to like say something at a specific time, I can think one example I did recently was there's the one where it has like this little music and it goes, "What's poppin'?" And then it jumps over to something else, goes, "Don't mind me just watching." And I jumped on that and I made that within the app, because if I had it without the app, I wouldn't know when to say like, "What's poppin'?" And then I had to move it over to my dog who was watching me work from home. And so with stuff like that, like I'm making sure I'm making it within the app because it makes a lot more sense. It makes it easier. Honestly, like, then I don't even have to edit it. It's just there and it's done. But that's the main reason. Honestly, I don't recommend most people edit in Final Cut Pro unless you already use it and it's just easiest for you. But you can check out some of those other apps too and figure out like if you're wanting to edit the main clips outside of the Reels app. I find that to be easier than trying to do it within Reels.
Yeah, I would not have thought of Final Cut Pro on my own, but when you said that, I'm like, that makes a lot of sense. And yeah, for reference to people, Final Cut is like a paid software too that's not, I think it's like $300 or so. So it would not be worth it if you're only using it for Reels. But if you are using it for other stuff, it would make sense. Okay, and then this is a question like I legitimately have for my own self. So with the music, so my account, I have a business account on Instagram. I don't have the music feature. I don't have it for stories. I've never had it. And in Reels, it says I don't have it. But then I've had people say if you use a creator's account, you get music. So I switched to a creator's account and it still told me I don't have music. And I think it's just like me for like, it's not letting me have it. But I thought I found a solution, and I have 2 Instagram accounts. I have one that's like my old personal account that I've just never deleted. It's on private and I only follow myself. The reason I've kept it is because I want to keep all those old like photos and videos and haven't like taken them off yet. But that was back when I had 2 Instagram accounts. But on there, it lets me have music on Reels. But when you save it, it doesn't save with the music. So at first I was like, I could just make it there, do the music on there, and then I'll upload it. And none of that worked. So what is the solution to have music if you don't have music?
Yes. Oh my gosh. I can't even describe how many DMs I get about this. Like almost on a daily basis, I get a new person like, how do you add music? I don't know.
Yeah, because you have music, right?
I do. Yes. I've always had music, and I have a business account. I've had a business account for
it's just some
months.
people that they don't let have it. Because I've heard people say like, it's certain things like not a business account. But yeah, I literally have never had it. I've even contacted Instagram about it once. I was like, give me music. So
yes. Oh, that's so frustrating. So what I would say, I still do this with some like sounds that aren't like, with trends and stuff, with sounds that I want to use. I will create it within TikTok first, save it from TikTok, and then upload that to Instagram. And in my experience doing that, it uploads it as like original audio and not like the song. And so you can try that. I've heard, like I told someone else to do that recently that said they didn't have music, and they said it worked. So you can literally, there's a lot of different ways you can save your TikTok. I actually have a YouTube video on how to save it without like that watermark at the bottom. So if you want to know how to do that, you can go check that out. But you can,
we'll link to that.
Yeah, but you can either like in TikTok, if you're familiar with TikTok at all, before you hit publish, so on the last page where you like add the caption, everything like that, if you tap on like the little video in the upper right hand corner, like how you preview the video before you actually go to post it, you can just screen record your screen as you're viewing that. And then you can upload that to Reels, like just condense it so it's from the start of the video to the end of the video. And then you can upload that to Reels, and it should upload it as like original audio. Or once you post it, like if it's or TikTok you've already posted, like, like I mentioned, I have a ton in the past that I wanted to upload to Reels. And so you can save it as a live photo and then just press and hold down like on an iPhone and record that. And it will record your Reel or your TikTok from start to finish with the audio. So then you can upload it. That probably sounded really confusing. So if it was,
it's complicated.
It's a lot. Sense. It's a lot of steps. But I have a YouTube video that like kind of shows you how to do it. So if you want to see that, you can go check it out. Might make a little bit more sense than trying to like explain it via podcast.
Yeah, well, the TikTok solution, that makes a lot of sense. And I can tell just for people listening, if they want like another idea, I don't know if this is the best way, but this is literally what I did for the one I posted today, because I realized that I made it on my old personal account and I'm like, yay, I got the music, and then it wouldn't save it. So I had saved the video, and then I played Spotify in the background on my phone for the clip I wanted the song, and I screen recorded the video and then saved it and then like, cut it to the right amount. So for me, it says original audio when it's not. It was like actually Spotify music, but it was a little complicated because if I was needing it to hit at the right moment, it wasn't going. It's like I have to like, okay, at 12 seconds, I got to make sure I start it. So the TikTok solution sounds like it makes more sense, but that was what I did, and it did work for me.
Okay. Yeah. That's what I was going to say. You could do that too. Either one of those would work. The TikTok would also make more sense if you're using a sound, because there's a lot of TikTok sounds that aren't the original audio for music. So like people have changed them or like add a pause or something like that. And so you're able to take advantage of using those kind of sounds if you make it within TikTok and then somehow save it from TikTok and upload it. Hopefully in the future, everyone will have music and this won't even be an issue. But like,
It's so weird.
it's so strange.
It's like a thing that Instagram just didn't give it to every user. I don't think it has like, there's some like really big accounts. I've like Kayla, it's seen this. I always never know how to say her last name right, but she's like one of my favorite like workout people, and she doesn't have music and talks about it. And I'm like, well, she doesn't have music. And I'm like, that makes sense. I don't have music. But okay, another question with like creating. So you do covers on your reels, which when we say covers, that means that like you're uploading an image that is separate from a clip that's actually within the video. So you can do that same thing. Like I do that on IGTVs a lot. I'll like upload a cover image. So you do that for reels. What are your thoughts on like a cover image versus just using like an actual like screen grab from the reel itself?
Yeah, so I love doing a cover just so I can plan out my feed a little bit more. I'm not the kind of person that curates my feed like super heavily, but I still want it to be like mostly professional images. And so I prefer to create a cover so that when I push and change out the cover from the video so that when I push it to my feed, it has that photo showing up. So that's just my personal preference. I don't really think there's a right or wrong, but if you're someone who likes your feed to look a certain way, it can be a really helpful way to keep your feed a little bit more on brand and consistent, and to be able to make like whatever video you want behind that cover, if that makes sense, and not worry about it looking good.
Yeah. And where are you making your covers for people who are like non-designers who are like, how do I make a cool cover? Because yours look really nice and they're very branded for you.
Yeah, thank you. So I actually created a template in Canva, and I actually have a link to that if people want to download it. But I have a Canva template. I just change out the text, change out the image, or I also have it in Photoshop form that I can pull into Photoshop. But Canva is the easiest way because I can also pull it up on my phone and like change out photos on my phone if I want to make it there really quickly. So that's just been the easiest way I found to do it.
Okay. I like that. That's a good idea. Okay. Now let's talk about creating viral reels. So you mentioned already a little bit, but I mean, all of your reels, basically, I was looking through your stuff earlier, but like most of them, if not all of them, have had views like way higher than your follower count. And then you've had some that are actually like more at the viral level. So like what tips do you have for someone who's like, I'd love to have a reel that like tons of people see?
Yes. Okay. So like Elizabeth mentioned, I do have reels like that have had 200,000, 100,000. I've had several that have like 30, 50,000 views. But most commonly, like a lot of my reels are getting at least like 10,000 views. And right now, like, so when I started reels, I think my follower count was around, it would have been around like 7,000 followers. And so obviously that's even more than the followers that I have, right? And so there's a few things that I'm doing that I think really does help things to catch on and become, obviously there's no way to absolutely know what Instagram's going to pick up, but in general, there's some things that have really helped me, not only for those reels to go viral, but also converting them into followers. So the first thing I will say is make sure that you hook them at the beginning. So especially when we think about Instagram, people are just sitting there scrolling on their phones, right? You have to have something that's going to stop them in their tracks and stop them from scrolling and want to keep watching your videos. So I think Instagram is definitely looking at, you know, how long are they watching the video? Are they rewatching the video? Are they liking it? Are they saving it? Are they commenting? All those different things, which is, you know, kind of almost nothing new. You know, we kind of know that with Instagram posts, but that definitely applies to Reels too. And so if you're able to hook them at the beginning and get them to stop and to actually start watching, that's kind of the first step. And so one of my favorite ways to do this is to call out who you're talking to, especially when we're talking about, you know, making sure you're attracting your ideal client with your Reels. For example, I'll have someone that says, hey, photographer, or hey, wedding photographer, or photographers, watch this, or you'll never guess what blah, 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 you know, something just to kind of stop them in their tracks and think, oh, I'm a photographer, or oh, that's me. Another way you can do this is kind of by making like a more shocking statement. And I'm not saying I have to go crazy at all here with this, but one thing I did recently was I did a reel that I said at the beginning, I had a very big text block. I actually didn't even like talk in this reel at all. It was just like, it's actually I think the one dancing reel that I did ever. But it was me like doing this dance, and it had a big text on it that said things I do as a photographer that aren't normal. And then I started having text pop up on the screen that said, I do this, it's not normal. I do this, is not normal. I do this, is not normal. And then kind of at the end said, do your own thing. Like, don't just copy what other people are doing, even if it's not normal. And that got so much traction and so much, not only like views, but I saw a lot of engagement with that, and people being like, oh my gosh, like, how did you do that? How did you not do? Like, one of the things was I don't do wedding photography consultations to book weddings. And I had a lot of people being like, how did you do that? Like, how in the world? How do you even trust them? How do you know them? How do you know they're a good fit? Like, and you know, it's something that I do in my business that a lot of photographers don't do. And so if you're able to do something like that to hook them at the very beginning and get them to stop their scroll and to get them to start watching, whether it's a statement, whether it's calling out exactly who they are, those have been the best ways that I've been able to do that.
Yeah. Well, and you too, like with even that example you just gave, I mean, it's a great way to show, like we talk about, of empathy and authority in your business. So like you're setting yourself up as like the expert who's going against the grain of like what you've been told you have to do, which is also such a great, like people talk about thought reversal in our marketing. Like that's a piece of what you're talking about as well, of like, you think it has to be done this way. Here's an alternative. And it is like such a good reminder that we can do all these cool marketing strategies. Like I love talking about the shocking statement. That's like, I know you're watching the compelling copy blueprint right now.
Yes,
I think I don't know if you've seen that video yet. I talk about that though.
Yep.
It's like, it doesn't have to be like crazy, but you should like shock them into paying attention. So, okay. I love that one though. Okay. What other tips?
Yeah. Okay. So another tip I have is to show your face. So I think this is something we hear a lot about too, when it comes to like personal branding and all of that, but it totally applies to just videos we're creating. Especially when we think about, people connect with people. They don't necessarily connect with just businesses or brands. And so they want that personal connection. So if you're willing to show up and show your face, it could be a really cool way to also get them to stop. I've seen this work really well. Like maybe there's a reel where I am sharing, 3 tips for how to do something, or maybe if I'm targeting it, maybe for like a client, like a photography client, like here's 3 things you can do on your wedding day. Here's, and I have pictures that are going to show those 3 different things. But instead of it just jumping right into that and saying, here's like this thing and this thing and this thing you can do, instead starting off with like my face, I know people can't see me. I was about to demonstrate, but showing like your face at the beginning and like smile. Yeah. And showing your face, like smiling and being like this and being like, hey, like I'm going to show you these 3 things. And then it jumps to the pictures of the things or whatever you want it to be. And so I've seen that do really well too. Just being willing to show up and show my face in reels and not always hiding behind, my work or whatever else and that kind of goes along with behind the scenes too, like be willing to show behind the scenes, because I've seen that do so well in the reels that have gained a lot of traction, and just people being able to see me in action, see me working, or see my face and kind of have more of that personal connection to me.
And with that too, if you're thinking about the idea of batching the content, if you had your list of like, here are the different topics, you could record that first little piece. And then when you go back later, sitting there forever, putting all the rest of those images in, because because you can start a draft and stuff. I learned that this morning.
Yes.
Okay. I love that though. Yes. Showing your face.
Yes. And you can actually, like, if you just want like a bunch of different like intros like that, just have like 10 different shirts laying like next to you. Just change your shirt every time and do 10 different like intros. And then you'll have those to pull from later when you come up with ideas. I've even done that before. Like I'll just have a bunch of different like, videos of myself like smiling and posing for the camera, which, it's kind of, if you just look at the video alone, you're like, wow, Stephanie, like, what are you doing? But like, it's really helpful because later I'll come up with an idea and maybe it's a trend or something that's going around that people are doing. And I can just throw it in and use it and not wait for me to, I'm like, oh, like, because if you're anything like me, I work from home. I don't do my hair and makeup every single day. And neither do I want to. And so I want to take advantage of any time like I get dressed up and put myself on video.
Yeah, no, it's so true. And also something I want to say here too, that this is kind of not related, but also related. You're good at showing up without being all done up. Like just the other day you shared that, but you like intentionally didn't use a filter on your story. And you were like, hey, I want to show like, this is how I actually look. And like cause some of these filters are crazy lately.
Oh my gosh.
Like, it's like, are you even a human? Like, I don't know. I don't like it personally, but I appreciate that. And I think that's a good, like, giving permission though, because I do think some people feel like, oh, I want to do a story today, but like my hair looks really bad, so I can't go on stories, or like I don't have my makeup on. But it's like you can still show up that way. And I show up a lot without makeup, and I just put on sunglasses and walk outside if I don't want to like be full face, no makeup. So that's another idea. But anyway, that was a little side tangent, but I appreciate that. And I think that's a good lesson someone can take of like that you can show up without being like,
oh, for sure. For
all the camera
sure.
ready.
And even like for me, when it comes to like for example, for today, last night I just braided my hair so it looked a little wavy, and then I did really simple thank you, little simple mascara and eyeliner and like really simple foundation, like didn't go crazy at all. And I was like, that's good. And I'm actually planning after we're done to film some reels while I have my hair and makeup done, but it's also like not anything crazy, you know, like it's not like you have to put on false eyelashes and get crazy like done up every single time. If that makes you confident, if that makes it to the, you know, if that gives you confidence to show up on video, then I say go for it. But also, don't feel like it has to be something that's like perfect. I think people also really like it when it feels a little bit more genuine and authentic and not always totally done up. So thank you.
Yeah. And that's also a good story tip in general. I've talked about that before, but that like, if you look like you're about to go to like, you know, Cinderella's ball every time you go on stories, people are going to be a little bit like, can you like be a little more normal? Or there's
like that one filter that like it makes your lips look bigger and it adds like false eyelashes. And I'm like, I tried it and I was like, this is crazy. I don't feel like myself.
Yeah. Well, and then there's some that even like, there's one that I actually do think I like it because it looks really pretty, but it changes your eye color to be lighter.
Yeah.
And it just looked like I started just filming. I'm like, this is just weird because this like is not. But like the lighter eyes were pretty, but it's just it's a lot. Okay, that was a side tangent, but you have a few more tips for viral reels. So what is your next tip?
Yes. Okay. Next thing. So going back to when we talked about how long people are watching your reel, how long people are staying engaged with it, whether they're rewatching it. Keep it interesting. So keep it as fast paced as you can. Obviously, don't go crazy and only have like a huge paragraph of text show up on the screen for 1 second. And obviously, people can't even tell what's going on. But one mistake that I see a lot of people making is they have some text. Maybe they have 1 or 2 sentences that pop up on the screen, and then it's up there for like the full 10 seconds or 15 seconds, and they're not like breaking it up and changing it throughout the reel. And so what I've seen work a lot better, and that holds, and you know, just think about yourself when you're watching reels, what holds your attention better is when someone puts up like 3 sentences, it stays there for the entire 15 seconds, or maybe 1 sentence at a time where, you know, the first sentence stays on there for 5 seconds. The next one is for the next 5 seconds. The next one's for the last 5 seconds. So thinking about how you can break those up a little bit more. And when I'm editing my reels or my TikToks, I'm making sure that portion of text isn't on the screen for longer than like 5 seconds. If it's longer than that, I would say it's probably too long, or you need to break it up a little bit more, because that's going to hold people's attention more, and it's going to get them to watch it longer. Or even, I would say a sneaky strategy you can do is having almost too much text to read in that 5 seconds. So people have to rewatch it to figure out what the last few words were. It's a little sneaky, but it's a way for them to, you know, hold their attention and be like, oh, I need to rewatch this, and like figure out like what the last 2 words were or whatever. So just making sure, you know, with text especially, but also even just like if you have photos that pop up on the screen, if you have video, just think about, you know, make sure you're keeping it interesting. And that if there's nothing that's on the screen for too long, otherwise people will just keep scrolling. So like, oh, well, this is taking forever. I don't want to wait for the next thing.
Yeah, that's a great tip. And with like something to note about reels that's different from stories. On stories, we can say hold to read, and you put your thumb on it and it like pauses. That's not how it is on reels. You have to like kind of, I guess if the reel's on someone's story, it is like that. But otherwise you have to like pause it. So it is harder to read stuff like that.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah, I love that. Okay. And then your last tip about calls to actions. I really like this one.
Yes. Okay. So this is where, again, going back to, you know, we don't want to get all these views on reels and all this engagement on reels, and then that's the end of it. We want to turn these people into people who are following us and start becoming engaged with us, become engaged with our brand, and that are genuine like followers of us, right? And so making sure that on every reel you're having some sort of call to action. And this is, again, kind of similar to what we hear over and over again about Instagram posts, but I'm making sure that on most of my reels it has some sort of call to action, if not on the reel, for sure within the caption. So whether it's save this post to remember these poses for later, or this tip for later, or follow me if you want more tips like this, or go check out my past reels if you want more videos like this. Maybe you've posted similar videos that they would also like to watch. And so that's something that I've done too. And I feel like that's what's really helped me also, you know, getting these reels, like gain all these views, all this attention, not only getting those views, but also translating them over into real engaged followers of mine. way, because it's prompting them to say, oh yeah, I probably could follow her. If I really enjoyed this reel, I could just go check out her account, see if I want to follow her. So that's something I would say that's super, super important when it comes to creating reels, is making sure you're giving them some sort of call to action. And I would encourage it, you can do a call to action like the video, but to me, I think saving the video or following you or checking out your account is probably a little bit more valuable than just liking it.
Yeah. Well, that's like with the call to action thing. I mean, so often we think people just know what to do with whatever it is. And I say this all the time about your website, but like you should tell people what to do. Like it's just, It's like, they'll do whatever they actually want to do, but it's good to give people like, here's what the next step should be. Yeah. And then, okay, a question with you in that one. So you're putting a lot of the calls to actions in the captions. How long are the captions you're writing, like compared to a normal Instagram post?
Yeah. So my normal Instagram posts are pretty long. I very rarely have very short captions, but for reels, honestly, I've done a huge variety of things. I've had short captions where literally all I'm saying in the caption is follow me if you want more tips like this. And that's pretty much the main meat of the content was already in the reel, and I'm not necessarily going to flesh it out in the caption. Whereas I've done videos before where, for example, that one where I said 3 things I do that aren't normal as a photographer, I fleshed that out a little bit more in the caption because I knew I was going to have a lot of questions on that. People were going to want to know more about it, and it was going to be an opportunity to kind of give them more of what I was talking about when I said that I don't do these things or do these things differently. So I've kind of tested both of them. I haven't really landed on if there's one that's better than the other. I've kind of done, both things. I think it just kind of depends on the video and what makes sense. Like if you're doing, for example, like that one that I was talking about when I go what's poppin'? And it jumps over to my dog and says, don't mind me, just watching. Like, I don't know what kind of caption I would make on that, that's super long. And so I know that one was pretty short and sweet of just does anyone else feel like they're being watched when they're working from home? Something fun like that. But I don't think that necessarily calls for, 3 paragraphs of a caption, if that makes sense. Unless I had something to go with it, but I just didn't. And I think that's okay.
Yeah. Okay. That's great. That's great advice. And okay, I think this is my last Reels question. I feel like I could keep asking you questions though. But here's another one I think other people are probably wondering as well. But to your knowledge, what are the analytics like for Reels compared to other stuff? Because, on Instagram for posts, you can see how many saves, how many people discovered you, all of that. So what's it like for Reels right now?
There is nothing for Reels right now. And
that's what I thought.
Yeah, there's nothing. Even I use Later to plan out my Instagram feed, and they also have a really great analytics section, and I can't see anything for any of my Reels yet. And so I think it's something Instagram just hasn't come out with. Obviously, I can attribute all my growth to Reels, kind of pinpointing from the time I started. It's my analytics for my followers went way, way up. So you can kind of see the correlation there between Reels that started taking off and getting traction and how that gained you more followers. But as far as saying specific insights on Reels and how people are finding them, if it's through hashtags, if it's through the Explore page, if it's through their homepage, I don't have any of that yet. And as far as I know, there's not anyone else who has it either. So.
Yeah. Okay. I guess, and that's probably something that if you're listening to this way into the future, I would imagine that would have changed by now. But I was noticing that this morning that all I could see was likes and views, and that was it.
Yep. Yes.
Because you have the option to save people's Reels. And for Instagram posts, I love watching saves because that's a great indicator of it being helpful content. But yeah, so hopefully that changes. But that's interesting to observe. Okay. So, any last Reels thoughts that you can think of that you're we should have covered this? I know that we could talk about it forever, but anything you can think of that you want to leave people with on Reels?
I don't think so. I think I would just say, just have fun with it. It's something that there's no expectation. I think that's the fun thing about it. There's so many different things you can do with it. You can have fun with it. Have fun just creating content that's different and that doesn't really have this sort of expectation of how it has to be because it's so new. So if you're thinking about doing it, I say go for it and have a blast while you're doing it.
Yay. I love it. Yes. And I think by the time we air this, I will have done more Reels as well. So that's fun. I think I'm going to record some more this afternoon, actually, while I'm on my mind and feeling very inspired right now. So maybe for those of you listening, go record your first Reel or your second Reel after listening to this. I feel like listening to stuff like this gets you all yes, I can totally do that. Okay. So I have a few rapid fire questions for you that are fun. And this first one's not as much of a rapid fire one because it's probably a little bit of a longer answer, but I think it's really interesting. Again, another thing that we could probably do a whole episode on, but you are a YouTuber, not a podcaster, but you're YouTubing like business content. And I feel like the most common thing when we are like going from blogging to like, I want to create another type of content for our business, most people choose podcasting, but you didn't. So I want to hear why you chose YouTube.
Yes. Okay. So the main reason I chose YouTube over podcasting is because YouTube in and of itself is mainly a search engine, and it's owned by the biggest search engine, which is Google. And so I knew there was a big opportunity on YouTube to grow my audience versus podcasting. I know there's ways you can do that. And there's ways that, like through like word of mouth or through blogging your episodes. But I knew that with YouTube, it was just an opportunity to hop into like directly into the two biggest search engines that are out there and to grow my audience that way. And so for me, in my eyes, when it came to thinking about like if I want to do YouTube or a podcast or whatever, like YouTube just felt like a faster way to grow an audience outside of people that I know and kind of reach new people through the search engine of YouTube and also the search engine of Google. So it's been really cool because recently I had one video that started taking off, and it's one about how to add a still photo to your reels, like a really quick and easy way to do that, because you can't just swipe up and like add a photo in Reels. You have to do some workarounds. And so it's been really interesting though, because it's taken off. It has like over 10,000 views at this point on YouTube. Wow. And what's been interesting is almost half the views came from YouTube search, and almost the whole other half of the views came from Google search. So people Googling it and then coming across my videos. So for example, like if I had only done a blog post and somehow gotten it to rank, I would only be getting half of those views versus YouTube. I'm able to kind of jump into two different really, really big, powerful search engines. And so that's kind of why I decided to go the YouTube route versus doing podcasting. Now, I do want to start a podcast eventually. I think especially after doing YouTube. And I feel like podcasting, to me, in my mind, like when I think about it, I'm like, this is so simple. You don't have to think about where you're sitting. You don't have to think about like what the background looks like, what the lighting looks like, if the lighting's going to change. Like podcasting does feel simpler to me. And so I'm excited like in the future to hopefully jump into that. But I'm kind of waiting and putting more of my time and attention on YouTube and trying to grow that until I feel like I have more of a foundation on my YouTube channel before I kind of dive into a podcast and then bring my current audience over into podcasting too.
Yeah. I mean, that's also smart. And it's also another just example of like, you just because you think everyone else is doing podcasts right now, because I do feel like that's the thing you hear more about than YouTube, doesn't mean you have to do a podcast. And something we're actually working on, in the next few months, like my team and I, we're doing not all of them. We're going to start putting all the podcasts, new ones, and then backlogging some old ones onto YouTube because a lot of people are going there to listen to podcasts, which I found so interesting, like reading about that. And similar to what you said about searching and the algorithm and stuff, podcasting, like Apple Podcasts has the worst search engine ever, and Spotify's isn't much better. So then obviously like YouTube and Google are like incredible with that. So that's really cool. And just, something to think about, you guys, if like you could do YouTube.
Yes.
Okay. These last two are more actual rapid fire. So favorite business book that you would recommend we read?
Yes. Okay. So there's one, I actually started rereading it a couple days ago, and I saw this question. I was like, oh, nice. But it's called Contagious. And I feel like it's just super applicable to everything we're talking about. And it's been really cool just like refreshing my memory on what was in the book, because it basically talks about how things catch on, how things go viral, how like businesses go viral, ideas go viral, like all that different kind of stuff. And so I feel like it totally just applies so much to everything we're talking about with reels and coming up with ideas and like how you can make it different. So that's what I'm reading right now, because I'm trying to think of all the different ideas and ways I can make my reels different. Another book that I love that I'm still implementing myself, but has been a game changer for me this year is Profit First. And the biggest thing I just loved about it was thinking about how much it's easy to overspend in our businesses and think about, oh, well, it's a write-off and I can spend this much or whatever, but really like being realistic and sitting down and figuring out like how you can manage your finances better to actually provide a really awesome income for yourself, and just like how to figure out which expenses are actually necessary and what you can actually automate instead of like paying for and stuff like that. So that was just I really loved that book, and I loved reading it. And it was super just helpful for me. And so if the finances part of your business is something that is something you struggle with or something you feel like you need more direction in, go read that book because it is very, very practical and super good.
I love that. And I haven't read either of those, but I need to.
Yes, you should.
Okay, so we're actually, fun thing, we're actually recording these episodes back to back, but in like a few weeks, you'll get more of Stephanie on the podcast because she's going to do an episode talking all about her like wins with like using my template shop. But I do want to ask for just a quick thing here on this episode. So like you have 2 templates now.
Yes.
Yeah, one of them like literally is up like 2 or 3 days ago, which is fun. But what advice would you give to someone who's listening right now and who is like, oh, I am like thinking I want a template, but I don't know yet? What would you say?
I would say if you want the look of like a custom design, but you aren't ready to hire a designer yet, maybe you're newer, maybe that's just not something like you want to go for yet, do it. Like it has been one of the best decisions I've made in the past few months of my business. And I truly like, it has propelled me forward so much. My old brand just was not me. It wasn't showing my personality. That's one thing I love about Elizabeth's templates and why I talk about them like all the time is because they have like, they have the ability to almost showcase your personality, but also are built very strategically. And that was something that I felt was lacking from a lot of just templates that I saw out there. And so I am super, super happy with my purchase and like over the moon about it. So if you're thinking about it, if you're considering it, I personally did so much research on so many different templates, so many different designers, and I kept coming back to Elizabeth because hers are just so, so awesome. So do it.
Oh, you're the best. Yes. And I'm excited to record this next episode because me and Stephanie are about to literally just be hanging out for 2 hours doing all this stuff. But yes. So you'll have to come back and listen to that one as well to hear more about that. But yes, thank you for the sweet words. Okay. Last things. So we have to tell where everyone can find you, but also I want to say real quick, if you are listening to this live, we are having a giveaway together on Instagram, and tell them what you're giving away because I think that's really fun.
Yeah. So I'm giving away my Lightroom mobile preset. So doesn't matter if you aren't a photographer, doesn't matter if you don't pay for Lightroom. The Lightroom mobile app is completely free for anyone to download. And so anybody can use these presets, and they're the presets that I use on all of my like iPhone images. And so I'm giving one person my mobile presets, which is really exciting.
Yes. And I'll be giving away one of probably the link in bio template from my shop. That's like one of the simpler templates. It's really great. Helps you have an Instagram link in your bio. So you can go to both of our pages on Instagram. I'll link to those also in the show notes, but there will be directions on the day this goes live with how to enter and all of that. And you can tell us what you learned from this episode about Reels, which is fun. Okay. So tell everyone though, I know you have a freebie too that you can talk about, but where everyone can connect with you.
Yes. So I have a free download. I kind of mentioned it earlier, but it's an Instagram Reels cover photo template. So like in Canva or Photoshop, you'll get access to both of those. So like the one I mentioned earlier, I'm giving you the exact template that I use to create those cover photos. So if you want something just to kind of get you started and then plug in your own colors and branding or whatever, you can grab those. They're at stephaniekase.com/cover. And my website is stephaniekase.com if you want to come check me out. It's Kase with a K, just want to clarify. And then my Instagram username is at Stephanie Lynn Kase, Lynn. And my YouTube channel is at Stephanie Kase. If you just type in youtube.com/Stephanie Kase, it'll pop up.
Yes. Okay. Yay. This was awesome. I feel like I feel so pumped about Reels personally right now. So I hope everyone else listening does too, and that you guys will try it. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. This was so much fun.
Thank you for listening to the podcast this week, friend. I appreciate you being here. And hey, if you enjoyed this episode, I want to tell you about something. I would encourage you to check out my website template shop. Over on elizabethmccravey.com, you'll find Show It website templates, and they are easy to use, strategically designed, and created to help you book more clients and customers. Maybe your current website is really boring. I don't know, maybe it is, and maybe you don't want to hurt its feelings, but you know it's true. And your website needs to be strategically and intentionally designed in order for it to convert your viewers into raving customers. And that's what these website templates do on MShop. These are pre-made website templates built for the Show It platform where you can plug and play your content into the template with ease and then get started with a website that is made to actually make you money. Isn't that what we all want, right? So go shop the templates at elizabethmccravey.com/shop. That link is also in the show notes. And don't forget that you can actually subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening so that you never miss an episode. And I would so appreciate it if you left a rating and review for the show on Apple Podcasts, or even just share it with a friend. It's a great way to support the show and then give us your feedback. So thanks so much for listening.